All right, everybody, welcome back. Real World Retirement, the podcast. I hope you're enjoying the journey. I know I say that every time, but man, oh man, we're having some fun on our side of the fence here at Foguth Financial Group. I am your host, Alexander Pushman, and I've spent over a decade in the business, thousands of second opinions on all the good, fun retirement topics like income, taxes, investments, all that fun stuff, RMDs, which we're going to talk about today. So the purpose of this podcast is to give you solutions to obstacles and problems that you will face at some point in your retirement journey. Our goal is to bring on great advisors, expert advisors out of our team that can help educate you on these specific areas where we would consider them industry experts or topic matter experts. So today's topic, everybody, ticking tax clock. Now that might be a little bit of a twister for you there with the words, but it's all about three specific topics. When we talk about this tax clock that's ticking on you, when's it going to blow up? When's it going to blow up in your face and make you have to make decisions? A lot of people aren't aware that it's even coming. And I brought on a phenomenal resource here, my man Jeff Newsome, one of our lead advisors out of the Okemos or Lansing area here in Michigan.
Yeah, Okemos office.
And Jeff, thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. My pleasure. Jeff's done a ton of work with some high net worth families pertaining to solving RMD issues, pension, Social Security decisions. So I thought, who else better to talk about, the ticking time clock here with retirement than my man Jeff Newsome. So Jeff, do me a favor before we kind of start diving into the actual subjects and the topics we're going to discuss. Give everybody a little bit of lay of the land. Who you are, why you're in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we've had some conversations about, what brought me into this industry. But for those that don't know me, I started and I actually was going to go into the military. So I have a long history in my family all the way back to the First World War of individuals going into the military. So that's where I started. So I could go to college and I still have this fascination with business. So while I was going through and I was doing the training with the military, I spent a lot of times going to the library, working with professors to really get to know this business. And it was sort of funny on how it happens. Life doesn't exactly go the way that you plan it to. And I think we've all been there.
Right.
And so I didn't actually end up going into the military like I thought. A lot of training, loved my time, learned a lot, and it made me who I am today. But when I went out from college into my career, I actually got started in the automotive industry. So being in the state of Michigan, obviously automotive, that's a big thing here as well.
Right.
And I worked on the corporate side of finance. So that's where I started, was more helping businesses do well, making sure their numbers were correct. And that ignited and reignited that passion to go and help individuals do well with their finances. And it's sort of funny on how life works. I just had my daughter, is back in 2019, and then the pandemic.
Right.
And while I was working, I'm doing apparel manufacturing at the time after I left the automotive industry, and things shut down. And it's sort of funny on how things work, but I actually got an opportunity to go back into the finance industry, but this time it was personal finance. So I worked with a firm local to the area, local in the state of Michigan, is a $4 billion firm. So big firm, a lot of great individuals there. And it's something that we say here quite often is, iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
And that place was just the epitome of that, to where you learned more than anywhere else of what the industry was going to throw at you, right? Learning what pension options were, pension maximization strategies. What do you do with Social Security? How do you delay? And the biggest thing that sort of glued me to the industry was taxes. Taxes are what really glued me to this industry and helping people. It's something that as I talk to more and more clients that come in, taxes is something that advisors stay away from, right? They're more worried about the investment sides, but what they don't go into is the tax planning. And that's certainly something that we do here,
right,
because it's all part of your plan. You have to have each individual part of your plan talking to each other for it to work the way you want.
Yeah, and that's a phenomenal point. It's funny. God bless you for being attracted to the tax part of it, right? That's you don't hear that too often out of people. Hey, I was attracted to the tax piece, right? But also, I know for you specifically, and especially being in the Lansing area, right? It's a big city. Okemos right outside Lansing, right? Absolutely. The capital of Michigan. If anybody listening who's not familiar with the landscape of Michigan. But you have a lot of high net worth families that you work with. You have a lot of people who came from, generational wealth. You also have the blue collar, right?
Absolutely.
And you get a little bit of everything in that kind of market and that demographic. Where would you like to start, Jeff? Because I know we have a lot to unpack here, and just so everybody has a good expectation as a listener at home, there's really three areas. When we talk about this tax clock of retirement, right? This ticking tax clock. What we're really talking about is there's three pieces that we're going to kind of go in. Jeff's going to do a great job of breaking down and helping educate you on. The first one is going to be pensions, right? You're somebody who's, hey, God willing that these pensions stick around and everything goes well. But if you have one, you're lucky. It's less than 5% of the population or something crazy. Yeah. So we're going to dive into pensions. Hey, do you take an annuity payout, or do you take a lump sum, and things you need to consider in that part of it? And especially we're going to attach the tax piece to it pertaining to Jeff's specialty. The second thing we're going to dive into is Social Security claiming, how taxes should weigh into that decision. And then the third thing we're going to dive into is the RMDs, required minimum distributions, distribution income planning. Sure, that's going to be a part of it, but really the RMD part of it. Now, one thing just to, kind of start with, before I jump into that case study that you were telling me about, Jeff, do me a favor. Can you kind of outline this? We were saying this ticking tax clock, window. Can you define that window? What is this window that we're going to be talking about in this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a tax clock, right? There's a period of time when you finally make that decision to retire, that there's so many things that happen in quick succession that from the point that you say, I am going to retire, all the way up to age 73 or 75.
Okay.
And the reason that those two ages stick out is due to the Secure Act, the Secure Act 2.0, and the changes of when RMDs, your required minimum distributions, those kick into place. Because at that point, there's things that happen that make managing this tax issue worse. Makes it much more difficult if we wait too long. So, and you probably are thinking, it's like, well, I thought RMDs were this age and RMDs were this age.
I thought they were 70 and a half, right?
It's changed so many times, right?
Yeah.
Pre-Secure Act, Secure Act 2.0, it jumped from 70 and a half to 72 to 73, 75. There's a portion in time to where you started at 72, you skip a year, you took it at 74. There's so many changes. So It's something that you want to keep up on and understanding the period of time that you really have.
Absolutely.
So that's the period of time that I want to start talking, is when you decide to retire. Now, of course, if you retire a bit early, fantastic. If you do, if you want to retire early, I commit to having that lifestyle to where family is going to be the most important thing in your life.
Right.
I'm a big family person here, 2 kids, wife. I want to focus on the people that fit that regular 60, 62, 65, right? That time period when you start your retirement and that time period that you have, right? So you retire at 62 because I can collect my Social Security now. Pension hopefully kicks on if you're lucky enough to still have one. But then you have, depending on your age, from 62 to 73 or 75.
Yep.
That's it.
So we're really talking about like a 10 to 15 year window. Absolutely. Based on A, retirement date, B, what is it? The year you were born on RMDs, and what's that rule right now?
1960. So if you're pre-1960, it's 73. If it's 1960 post, then it's 75.
Right. So that's the window we're talking about, just so that people understand this ticking tax clock we're talking about. It's a 10 to 15 year window we're really referring to.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now let's kind of dive in. We'll start with pensions. Give me kind of your take here. What are the things people need to know about? Do you have a case study you'd reference to? I'll give you the driver's seat.
Absolutely. So pensions, right? There's options that you have, and you want to understand and explore those options. I just met with somebody last week up in our Grand Rapids office, and unfortunately in this case, both have pensions, right? So we have 2 different things that we want to work through. And the one thing that I want to focus on, and especially for them, because we haven't even got to the Social Security conversation yet, but we're making that decision. I'm retiring, and now I'm turning on my income. And that's something that once we do it, it's not reversible.
Yeah.
right? Once you start your income, that you're stuck there.
Yeah.
And for these two, they both have a pension, and they're going through and saying, okay, does straight life make sense? Does a survivorship option make sense? Or does a lump sum option make sense?
Right.
Right? Are we going from more of the cash out, put it into an IRA, a traditional IRA, so it can be managed? Or do I go with more of the annuity option to where I'm just going to receive that monthly paycheck? And there are a lot of questions that you need to ask in those situations, not all of which I'm going to dive in today.
Right.
But when you start thinking about, well, what are my income needs? I just stopped working. I know what I was making then, but what do I need throughout retirement? And when we start pitching that together, I have to figure out at this point, at the point of retirement, figure out, do I need this income, or is it going to end up causing a problem later on? That is where I want to focus the conversation when we go to pensions. Because for this example and for this client, they already have good income.
Right.
Right. They've put money into the Social Security, right? They've paid their FICA taxes for many a years, and they have built up this large Social Security. And when you turn on pension number one, pension number two, Social Security number one, Social Security number two, now suddenly we have more income than what's needed.
Great point.
So that's where I want to focus people's attention. When you retire and if you have a pension, you need to make that decision at that time. So you need to look further out than just that retirement day, right? We know that's exciting.
Right. And it's kind of the blessing and the curse, right? Because the blessing is you've worked hard, you've developed these benefits, and you have this. And again, we could go through 30 different case studies and bore everybody to death. But the concept is it's like, okay, you've worked really hard. You now have, in theory, 4 deferred annuities.
Right.
You have 4 deferred annuities. For the record, I can't remember last time I met anybody who needed 4 deferred annuities.
That would be a tough one.
It's very rare. So to your point, now Social Security A and B, pension A and B, and you have 4 incomes coming in guaranteed for the rest of your life, right? And the odds that you're going to spend all that money every single month is very thin and none. I know the people you were talking about, they weren't spending it.
Right.
So now they're taking more money every year than they actually need, which raises their tax bracket, right?
Yep.
That's where the tax kicks in.
That's
on the
problem.
First step. Yes. So with that family, what did you look at doing pertaining to maybe minimizing some of this quote unquote guaranteed income, right? For deferred annuities? Because just for the record, folks, there's people out there, I hate annuities. I love annuities, right? There's really no in between. There's not a lot of gray on that. That conversation's a weird one, but it's a lack of education. There's 4 types of annuities. We're not going to talk about all 4 today, but my point being is a deferred annuity is Social Security and pensions. So, if you're one of those people like, I hate all annuities. Well, you don't like your Social Security. I don't think that's accurate. So, but there's 4 different types of them. They're all different. Variable annuities, completely different, world.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big fan of them. I know you aren't. But my point being is you can't lump the word annuity into it because Social Security and pensions is a form of annuity. And so now you're sitting here saying, hey, you're going to get too much income. What are the type of conversations or solutions you guys kind of looked at with that one, Jeff?
All right. So one of the things that I always tell my clients and the people that are just coming in for that second opinion is there's a short-term obvious thing that you're doing, right? Short-term obvious, you're going to retire, you're going to collect funds in one way or the other. But the long-term, maybe not so obvious thing that's happening here is you're losing control of your income. So to your question, right? What did I recommend for this individual client that's going to have 4 deferred annuity style incomes? Well, the question became do we need all of these?
Right.
I can't say, well, let's go get rid of your Social Security. But there are different options, and it's not everybody. Not everybody has all the options. Sometimes they are forced. You have
right,
to
and
take
you don't have a lump sum choice.
You don't have a lump sum option,
right.
And that happens.
Right.
But if you do have a lump sum option, it might make more sense for you to say, look, I want to control my income. I can take this lump of money and I can take money when I need it instead of it being forced out to me all the time. That is the solution to those problems if you can have them. If not, we have to look further and say, look, where is this going to put you out tax-wise? Because as your pension income comes in, as your Social Security income comes in, you're going to elevate your way through our progressive tax system.
Mm.
And then if we go too high, we're going to cause our Social Security to drop right back into our earned income. And that's going to be taxable as well.
And just for the listeners out there, let's say you're a married couple filing jointly. What's kind of the line in the sand where they go from like, because it goes 0% tax pertaining to X amount of income, then 50%, then 85%. Can you just kind of walk folks through that really quick?
Absolutely. So those modified adjusted gross income thresholds, there is a portion of assets that you can receive to where, look, you're at 0%. 0% of your Social Security is going to be taxable to you. Once you pass the threshold and it's married, it's $34,000. Then 50% of that Social Security benefit gets added back to your earned income. And the sad thing is that 85% barrier isn't that far away.
No.
It's $44,000. So you have a $10,000 difference between your Social Security being 50% taxable or 85% of it being taxable. So again, it's something that you have to know in order to prevent yourself from crossing these thresholds. Sometimes you just have good enough income to where you're going to cross it no matter what.
Right.
But what you certainly don't want to do is you don't want to pull money from a taxable account and then end up pushing your Social Security to become taxable. And now suddenly you didn't gain anything.
No.
You're in a worse spot.
You're just paying more in taxes. Right. Exactly. Right. And that goes to the credo of know the rules to play the game.
Absolutely.
Right. So, okay. So with the pension, the number one thing you're talking about is you got to identify, do you or do you need the income? Because to your point, there are a couple different strategies that, you're alluding to is number one, if there's a pension lump sum option to look at it.
Right.
And kind of to your point with that first, kind of takeaway or bullet point we're using of pensions, this is a rare one because you got to do the homework on the Social Security, which is going to be bullet point 2, to understand your decision on option 1.
Right.
Because you got to make a call on the pension before you leave.
When you retire.
It's the first thing you got to do, right? You don't have to have Social Security decision made before you leave your company. It's
Not usually, no.
It's completely separate. So it's kind of a rare thing.
Right.
And then to your point, you take a pension lump sum or you're not, but you got to understand the Social Security benefits to make that decision appropriately. Right. Okay. Now, the other thing is, so let's kind of go right into segue number 2 and jump deeper into Social Security. Now, you already identified the modified adjusted gross income levels, right? Which is worth $44,000 for a married. And again, if you're a single filer, the rules are different. What is it? Is it $34,000?
It's $34,000
for going to 85%.
For single.
Yes, for single. So again, different tax brackets. Again, if you have a question on this stuff and you're like, I didn't know my Social Security was taxed. How the heck do RMDs and Social Security go together in pensions? Jeff is an absolute expert. He's happy to help you. Anytime we have an advisor come on the podcast, one of the things they say is, listen, if anybody has any questions from the conversation or the content, I'm happy to answer it. So Jeff is a phenomenal resource. If you're somebody out there who doesn't feel educated on these subjects, please shoot us a comment. You can email Jeff directly. What's your email, Jeff, out of curiosity?
Yeah, so you can send me an email at teamnewsome@foguthfinancialgroup.com.
There you go. So you can email Jeff directly. He's great on this stuff. This is one of his, lots of experience in the subject. So diving into the Social Security piece, have you seen it where people will delay their Social Security because of the pension? Or do you see what type of strategies do you see landing in the Social Security part of this conversation with this ticking tax time clock,
So absolutely. There's a lot of interesting plays that you can go through when it comes to your Social Security, because this one isn't forced necessarily.
Right.
There becomes a point to where you need to take it.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, is after age 70, there's no reason you're not getting anything else after that. So you really need to take it at age 70.
Right. Great point.
So we want to make sure that that's the case, but you can start taking it as early as age 62.
Right.
You can delay all the way until age 70. And as you delay, it's going to increase the Social Security value. But the other part of this, most people know that part, right?
Right.
If I delay my Social Security, I'm going to get more later on.
8% a year, right?
Right, 8% a year. So when you think of it a little bit further and you start thinking about that tax clock that you're fighting, it gives you an opportunity to say, I'm going to delay this income. So when you say my pension, right? I turned on my pension. I have to do that when I retire. If you're retiring early in that 62 to 70 year range, right? If you're retiring on the early side, you could say, yeah, my pension's going to provide me some income. I might need to supplement it, but again, you don't want to lose control of your income.
Right.
So saying I'm going to retire, I'm going to turn on my pension, then I'm going to turn on my Social Security, maybe do both at the same time. You just committed to that income for the rest of your life.
Right.
There's nothing you can do after a certain period of time to say, look, I'm going to go back and turn off the faucet.
Yeah.
It's already on.
Yeah.
So what I see people utilizing and what I walk people through is maybe delaying that Social Security, not only because of the increase, but also because it gives you a period of time to where you're controlling your income. You might even have zero income other than what you take out of your retirement accounts. But it gives you this large portion of time to do what we talk about quite often, which is taking this big qualified pool of investments, which is going to kick off your RMDs, right? That's the ticking tax.
And you're talking about the 401k, 403b, 401a, 457.
Anything with three numbers and a letter.
Yes. Yeah. Just so that's what he's referred to when he says qualified. He's talking about IRA dollars.
Right. Pre-tax dollars.
Right.
You didn't pay taxes when they went in.
Right.
And that RMD age, 73 or 75, is when the IRS comes around and they knock and say, look, I didn't get my taxes when you put it into the account, so I want it now.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we're fighting against.
Your silent partner comes to the table.
Absolutely. Right. Hands always out.
That's right. That's right.
So when we start walking through, we can start pairing this delay of Social Security with either withdrawals from our IRA, which is pulling down that overall account value, or we can implement Roth conversions, right? Willingly while I'm managing my tax brackets, right? Because we don't want to do it all at once.
Right.
Right. And we've talked about that to individuals before, is that you don't want to go home and do all of your pre-tax dollars and make it Roth.
Right.
Right. You're going to shoot yourself up through the tax brackets. You're going to end up paying a tremendous amount.
Right.
But when you can add that calculation, you can add that analytical part to it and say, look, I have this income coming in. I got this standard deduction, so I get to reduce my earned income by this much. Maybe it leaves, 50, 60, 70 grand that you can convert at a lower tax bracket, and it starts pulling away from this qualified position, this pre-tax position that's going to cause you problems later on.
Right.
And the biggest thing is controlling your income.
Yeah. And I love that, controlling your income, because I know we want to spend a little bit of time on that. So really quick bullets and just, add anything if I miss it. First main thing we went through that just to highlight is when you're looking at your pension, right? If you have a lump sum option, understand lump sum versus the annuity portion, right? Which one's a better fit for me? With the first primary step to make that decision is understand what's my Social Security look like. Right. So we got to understand what our Social Security benefits look like to make our pension decision, which is usually the first decision. And then once we get there, is it a lump sum? Is it a annuity payout? And going from there. Second piece when it comes to Social Security is delaying a good option for you to start considering some of these other tax planning initiatives like a Roth conversion, right? And some of these other things we're doing. But the real main piece of Social Security, to your point, is understanding, should I delay it or not? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then now we're kind of segueing Social Security with RMDs kind of in two ways, because now we're in our third subject right now where we're talking about RMDs, required minimum distributions, where the government is forcing you to take money at either 73 or 75 based on your age. Again, folks, if you were born after 1960, it's 75 years old. Okay. So once you turn 75, government says, hey, you have to take money out of this account, whether you need it or not. And what we've identified, and again, going back to Jeff here, if you're not a big spender and you live beneath your means, so to speak, and you don't spend a lot monthly, you don't need a lot of money, you're probably going to get hit the hardest with the tax bill. It's the people who underspend who get hit the hardest, who are good savers. You got $2 million sitting in your IRA and you spend $4,000 a month, get ready. You are in for a rude awakening if you do not have a plan for this. Okay. Cool. So if that's you, not a big spender, you got a big IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever it is, please, whether it's somebody like Jeff or myself, please reach out to somebody and get a game plan, because I guarantee it will be an issue for you if you do not have a proactive plan on this stuff, okay? So now we're in the RMD world. To your point, you delay Social Security. You might have an extra $50,000, $60,000 a year to stay in your tax bracket. We're probably referring to 12%, right?
Correct.
And now you're able to convert IRA dollars, qualified plans to Roth, stay in the same tax bracket. But now over that, and again, 3, 4, 5, 6 years you've delayed Social Security, you might have converted a significant amount of money.
Good.
So you don't have the same problem.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So let's break down that RMD, that required minimum distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So what the IRS does is it adds up all of your accounts that are qualified, everything that's pre-tax. You did not pay tax on it. It goes into this one pool, so to speak. December 31st every year, the IRS is going to look at all those accounts and the account values, and that's what they're going to utilize to figure out what is the required minimum distribution. And the IRS does this great thing. They're going to tell you exactly how long you're going to live, utilizing their lifetime table. And then they're going to, we generally make it easy for people. We use it as percentages.
Right.
So that way it's a little easier to understand.
Yeah.
So again, this might not apply directly to you, but think of it this way, about 3.77%, right? So 3 to 4%, let's stay in that approximate value. So you take your $1 million IRA and you now have to take $30,000 or $40,000 from it to satisfy that requirement. So what does that do? Well, I have to take that money out of a qualified account, so it's pre-tax, which means it gets added to my earned income, and thus it can cause a couple of things. One, I can leave the tax bracket that I'm in.
Right. And go up.
I could go up. You're definitely not going to go down.
You ain't going down.
Not anymore, right? Because that required minimum distribution, it's on a bell curve. So you're going to start here and you're going to go up as you age. Well, what's supposed to happen to your account too? That's supposed to follow the same guideline. That's what we all want.
Yeah, amen. Right? Yeah. Amen.
So as your account value goes up, as your age goes up, the amount of money that you need to take out of the account to satisfy that requirement continues to progress.
Because what's it get to? It's like 3.77, then it goes up to almost 4, then it's like 4, almost 0.2. By the time you're 80, what is it, like 5.05 or something?
You can get up over the 5% mark.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you're over 5% to your point. So every year you get older, the percentage that the IRS requires goes up, A. B, hopefully your account's going up too.
Hopefully your account's going up too.
That's a dangerous,
absolutely. And there's some of the strategies we talked about before, right? Delaying Social Security if it makes sense and if you can do so without the income.
Right.
But then there's a trick here. You can't convert, which is one of the strategies we use to start minimizing this problem.
Point. Yeah.
You can't convert an RMD.
Right.
So that's where this ticking tax clock begins and ends.
Yes.
This is a required minimum distribution. And now it gets harder to diffuse this situation for you, and it gets harder to recapture control of your income once RMDs begin.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about the problems, which we've talked about in past podcasts too, but like the problems that it can bring into your Medicare, right?
Right.
It can bring into your Medicare premiums. It can bring into all sorts of, you start getting into the, I'm not even gonna go there, but there's a whole list of issues. There's a list of issues, but so now, what other things are you considering when you look at a family or you're talking to somebody specific to the RMDs? So A, the percentage gets bigger every year. B, once you take the RMD, you cannot convert that amount to a Roth. So that option is gone.
Correct.
And really your only option is either spend it or put it into a non-qualified investment, which now we're paying most likely short or long-term capital gains, and the money can get taxed every year. Merry Christmas, right? So what other things should people be considering with this RMD quote unquote issue or obstacle that you need to be aware of?
Right. So depending on where you are and when you're listening to this podcast, right, you could be earlier in your career and you may not know that Roths are a viable option for you. So getting started soon in that Roth account can save you from building this pre-tax position that's going to grow for the next 30, 40 years.
Great point.
So if you're in that portion, talk to somebody about opening that Roth IRA to start getting funds into a tax advantage, right?
Right.
You already pay taxes, you put money into the Roth, and then when you take it out, it's tax free.
Right.
It's the favorite type of asset, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we say all the time.
Yes.
It's our favorite type of
It's
money.
my favorite account for myself too. That's it.
So then when we walk through and we talk about, pensions, we talk about Social Security, and we talk about that ticking tax clock that's going to go off when RMDs start, we need to figure out what's our income need.
Mm-hmm.
How do we manage that throughout our retirement, not just when we retire, but throughout the rest of our life. And then also, well, what do I do to set myself up for success when it comes to either converting these funds or spending these funds to make sure that more money is going to you and to your family than's going to the IRS?
Right.
Because one of the things that happen with these big qualified accounts as well, right? You can't convert your RMD. So the only option at that point, as you said, right, I can either take it out and spend it, or if I want to, I can say I will take that additional amount out above and beyond your RMD. And then that's more than likely going to push you into a higher tax bracket. So you've got to be familiar and comfortable with paying the IRS these big tax payments.
Yeah, and there's two things you said there that I just want to make sure I highlight and then add any flavor you want to it. But number one, you inherit, let's say, God forbid, your parents pass away, right? And you inherit their IRA dollars, which is commonly the biggest account people have, because what do? They save in their 401k, 403b, right? Whatever their IRA, they save into that primarily their whole working career. So it's historically the biggest account. They pass away. If it is not your spouse, the only time you can still convert money, folks, is if it's your spouse's IRA you inherit. If you inherit your parents or you hand down money to your kids, they can't inherit those IRA dollars.
Right.
That's a big thing to be aware of. You know what I'm saying? You can't, okay, I just inherited dad's $3 million or mom's $3 million.
Keep it going. No.
Sorry, can't do it. The only thing you can do is take it as a distribution, because guess what? They want their taxes.
Right.
And they don't want you to have tax-free for another 30, 40 years, right? The IRS knows what they're doing here, folks. And then the second thing that you brought up that I think is just important to make sure people recognize is you still can do Roth conversions on your own money once you hit RMDs.
Correct.
But it has to be above that number.
Above and beyond what your RMD requirement was.
You got to take 4% out this year. That 4% cannot be converted. But if you want to go above that 4% of the account, that can be converted. But now you're, again, probably jumping your brackets.
Right, you're jumping your bracket. So you've got to be comfortable getting into these conversations. Because guess what? You're going to pay taxes either way.
Right.
You are. You're going to pay taxes. If it's paying taxes over a period of time because my income continuously increases over time and I just surge my way through it, or if I'm putting a strategy in place to where I know that there can be a better outcome, if not for you, for your family.
Amen.
To pay those taxes up front. So it can be scary sometimes. Right. When we start talking about these larger conversions or strategies that we just came into the picture too late.
Yeah.
Right. We started helping someone after they realized that they have made a mistake and now they've lost control.
Yeah.
Then you have to get comfortable with those bigger tax bills. And the reason that we look at it and we take it so seriously is that the IRS is not going to forgive your tax bill. If your kids inherit your funds, the IRS still makes them pay your taxes. But now they're on a timeline. That's the biggest thing. You have 59 and a half onward. You can take money from those qualified accounts with penalty free, right? You still got to pay taxes on it. But when your kids inherit it, they have 10 years.
10 years. So that's the other clock. That's not
the additional clock.
That's the other ticking tax clock.
Absolutely.
So you have the first ticking tax clock that the actual folks out there are going to deal with. Hey, from the time you retire to either 73 or 75, based on the year you were born. The second tax clock is for the family, the beneficiaries, the kids, whoever that may be. Once you pass away and they take the money, they got 10 years to pay the taxes, point blank, period. So they can take 10% every year, or they can wait till the end and get mollywopped, right? However that looks.
Do either or.
There is a second clock in this conversation.
Right. Absolutely, there is.
Yeah.
And again, short-term obvious. And again, it can even apply to the plans that we're implementing. Short-term obvious. I'm going to make some changes to make things better for myself. Long-term, not so obvious.
Right.
I still have to think about my family later on.
Yeah. And, you said something earlier that I think is a great solution too, which is, if you're younger, right? 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even, you got 2 years left of working. we're still talking to you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, is you can start contributing to a Roth ahead of time. B, you ask if your company has a Roth, Roth 401k, right? Roth 403b. If they have a Roth option, just understand the matching rules, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Employers are going to match it to your pre-tax.
Yeah, they're not matching the
They're
tax.
going to match to your Roth.
They're not going to match the tax-free dollar, right?
Absolutely.
They want the write-off. But okay, because that's a great solution too. Getting your money into your Roth while you're still working.
Absolutely.
Right. Whether it's through the company plan or you set up a Roth outside of your company
It's the
plan.
most powerful dollar that you have.
Right.
If you can get that into the Roth account when you're young, you'd be surprised on how much that's going to help later
Absolutely. And then what's the because if you're let's say your employer does not offer a Roth option.
Absolutely.
What are the things people need to be aware of pertaining to that?
So when you go into an expansion of the plans that you're eligible to put money into, the reason people utilize the 401ks and the 403bs is generally because they have a higher threshold. Right, I can put more. I can put $23,000 into it.
I can only put $7,000 over here, or $8,000 based on age. Right.
So that's the biggest thing. And then again, careful. Talk to somebody first,
right?
Because it's your tax bracket now. So if you're a high income earner, I'm not saying go put that money into a Roth account for you because you need the deduction that you get from putting it into a pre-tax account. So again, it has to fit with your scenario. But the big thing about Roth conversions, they can be done pretty much at any time.
Yeah.
So, we want to go through everything because there's tax consequences and there's different things you want to consider. But you need to start thinking about it's not just income, it's how it's taxed when it's taken out, when it comes to retirement accounts. If I can put money into a non-qualified, it's taxed differently. If I put money into a Roth, it's taxed when it goes in, right? I pay taxes on that dollar before I put it in, but I take it out as tax-free. But if I put money into a qualified account, the 401k, the 403b, I get that deduction now, which can help those high income earners, but you are again creating this ticking clock that you're going to have to fight later on. It might be beneficial now, and you can do the right thing your entire career. You can save big, you can spend smart, but when it comes to retirement, the IRS is going to win. They have to get their tax payment, and you better know how to navigate that to make sure that more money's going to you and your family instead of the IRS.
I love that. And Jeff, that's a really good way to just kind of summarize that. And what I would say too is if you're somebody out there listening or watching this and you're thinking to myself, all right, I wasn't aware of a lot of these things. I didn't realize it was so complicated. Again, the personal experience from my take, I'd throw in if you're a low spender, you don't spend a lot of money. What I mean, it's all relative to how much you have in investments, right? How much do you have in net worth liquid investments versus how much you spend? And then we throw, do you have a pension? What's your Social Security benefit, right? There's a conversation to be had. Right. But talk to a professional. That's what we're here for. That's what Jeff is here for. If you're somebody sitting out there and you're saying, hey, I don't know what the answer is for me. I'm not a big spender, but I've saved well. I would encourage you to set up a phone call, shoot an email to Jeff's team at Newsome at Team Newsome at foguthfinancial.com. Call us, send a message. You can drop us a line on social media, but this is what this is all about, you guys. We want to give solutions to these problems, not just scare you. I hate that stuff when people are just throwing fear out there and they're not giving any ideas or solutions. These are some phenomenal solutions. Anything else that you would add that maybe we didn't talk about today pertaining to, again, the pension, the Social Security, or the RMD issues that maybe is a nugget? I know we've kind of covered a lot, but anything you would add?
Absolutely. So one thing that I would add is make sure that you talk to somebody.
Right.
I can't tell you the amount of people that have come in and they just don't know where to start. Right. They know that they want to retire, but they don't know what decision to make next. And if it's regarding your pension, what do I do there? Is my spouse going to have enough if I'm no longer in the picture? What happens to Social Security? What spousal benefits work for you? There are a lot of things that can be talked about. And again, on that clock, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and some of them are just, you just can't reverse them after you make them.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you talk to somebody who has walked through this. It's something that we say all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a long way from retirement, but I get to retire 100 times a year.
Right.
And I get to see the mistakes that people make. So what do I do for the people that I serve? Make sure that those mistakes aren't made.
Right.
So that's the one thing that I would say is, look, there's information out there. Obviously, what we're doing here to provide information to the listener, we're trying to educate people so they can make good decisions.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better. Wonderful. So, hey, and if you're sitting there listening, number one, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Jeff, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, getting you out there from the office. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for coming. A lot of good stuff today. And, you know, if you're listening, this is your first time listening to the Real World Retirement Podcast, and you have a question, you know, you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, man, I need to know more about that. That's something I wasn't aware of. Engage with us. Make sure you follow us on all the social media channels. We're going to constantly be throwing out educational information around this. If this is the first time tuning in, we have a bunch of podcasts in the hopper that you could probably jump into and have a lot of fun with and learn a lot. Our goal is to have you learn at least one or two nuggets walking off of this podcast. So thank you to all the listeners who've been repeat customers, if you will, have gotten into the world here and the journey with us. We've been having a lot of fun with it. But again, join us next time. Thank you for joining us this time. Jeff, thank you for coming again. I am your host, Alexander Pushman. I hope you're getting some good stuff out of this, folks. And if you need help, we're here for you. God bless you. And tune in next time. We'll see you there.
Advisory services provided by Foguth Wealth Management LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. For additional information, visit advisorinfo.sec.gov and search 327-434.